Welcome back to the channel. We're back on our commander deck profile with Kraven, Proud Predator. For one, a red and a green, you get an X4, where X is the greatest mana value among permanents you control. And he also has Vigilance on top of that. So we have plenty of ways to make sure we get some high mana value spells onto the board for a lot cheaper than they normally cost, so that we can make sure we get them on the board and buff up his power without having to pay as much mana as we normally would. It also has some ways to benefit off of casting some high mana spells in order to make sure that we get as much benefit off of this deck as possible. And then just some ways to buff up Kraven's power, buff up his ability to get damage onto our opponent by giving him trample. Ways to, just have fun and do some big Timmy things. But that's just a general overview of the deck. Let's get into it card by card. Starting us off, we have some Lightning Greaves in order to make sure Kraven can attack the turn he comes down. He does have Vigilance, so even if he does swing in, we could still use him to protect us in the same turn. So, given that haste, does help us out. Rona's Monument, green creature spells cost 1 less to cast. Whenever you cast a creature spell, target creature you control gets +2/+2 and trample. We're going to be casting a lot of green creature spells. We have those in the deck a whole bunch. So giving Kraven that stat boost plus the trample allows us to be able to deal that commander damage to our opponent to have a way to win the game. Shadow Spear, it just feels fitting in terms of, like, look at his art. He has a spear in his hand. But yeah, you can also give him +1/+1, trample and lifelink, making so that Kraven can actually deal damage to our opponent with that trample, and removing the hexproof indestructible on our opponent's stuff. This way they may be a little bit more scared to block with it if it normally has indestructible. Soul Ring for some extra mana, Swiftfoot Boots to do the same exact thing as Lightning Greaves, Great Henge, speaking of one of our first spells that we can cast for less than its normal mana value. Normally, this is a 9 mana spell, but if we just have like a 7/7 on the board, this is a 2 mana spell. Or even if we just have like a 12/12 that we got on the board earlier. Once again, 2 mana spell, that's 9 mana, meaning that we have a 9/4 there for Kraven already. But also, as he enters, whenever a non-token creature enters, they get +1/+1 counters, and you get to draw some cards. So, you have this plus a mountain. That's already enough to cast Kraven. And he enters as a 10/5. And then we have Skullspore Nexus. The spell costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. Which, once again, normally 8, but it brings it down to 2. And we'll be able to get this out to benefit Kraven at that 8. And whenever one or more non-token creatures you control die, create a fungus dinosaur creature token with base power and toughness equal to power that creature. We're doubling up our creature's power. We're swinging in with our creatures. We're doubling up our creature's power with this card as well. So, doing just that will help us get some pretty strong dinosaurs, which will allow us to get our Great Henge for cheaper. Undrug the Quake Mole. Whenever this creature becomes blocked, untap each creature you control. There's an additional combat phase. You can make so your opponents have to block it. But even still, that also extra ways to swing with Kraven. We do get the extra combat phases, and our creatures don't untap during those combat phases. Oh, no, wait, sorry. Untap each creature you control. Okay, I missed that line. But yeah, still, being able to swing in with Kraven for even more damage helps us do our big Timmy thing. Asteroid Animus, this creature attacks another target creature you control, gets trample, and +X/+X, where X is this creature's power. So if we have this and Kraven, Kraven's a 4/4, make him into an 8/8 with trample. That's a pretty good stat line to be trampling over our opponent's stuff. Beast Whisperer for a little bit of draw power. We have a lot of creature spells, so may as well. Birds of Paradise for a mana dork, Delight Halfling for a mana dork, Elvish Mystic for a mana dork, Findle Elms for a mana dork, Fanatic Cronus for less of a dork, more of a mana chad. I forgot what the actual phrasing is. Galta Primal Hunger, our first high mana creature spell. This one, everyone knows Galta, I'm sure by now, but if you don't, you get it on the board for normally just 2 mana, as long as you have creatures with power 10 or more on the battlefield. So make Kraven into a 12/4 if we have this on the board. Still doesn't have trample on his own, so we'll have to find a way to give him that, but still, giving us a 12/4, super useful, all for just the 2 mana off of this. Galta, Stampede Tyrant, another creature that doesn't get itself out for cheaper, but could get one of our other things out for cheaper. Also just 12/12 trample on its own. Giant Adipage, when this deals combat damage to a player, create a token that's a copy of it. It's trample 7/7, so it's going to be pretty easy for this creature to deal that damage to our opponent. We keep on getting more and more giant Adiphages, all of which have the mana value of 7. Kraven only cares about who has the most, he doesn't care about like the total mana value. Which that would be kind of cool as like a King of the Jungle type thing, maybe. If like he had like equal to the total number of like mana value among creatures you control. But that'd be too broken probably. And but it would be kind of cool. Gorkluck, Terracalcisma, creatures spells with power 4 greater cost 3 less to cast, allowing us a little bit of cost reduction there for our creature spells, so that we can make sure we get them out for cheaper, buffing up Kraven that much more. Ilrog, the raise board, cheating us out a creature, basically a sneak attack onto the board, so that we can get a creature for cheaper, getting just that much more powerful of a Kraven. Malignus, power and toughness equal to the highest life total among your opponents rounded up. Damage that would be dealt by Malignus can't be prevented. So, way to give this trample, to give this like double strike, way to give all the buffs that we're giving Kraven to this. That could be a end of the game for the player with the highest life total. You don't have things to block with, of course. Might Form Harmonizer, whenever a land you control enters, double the power of target creature you control until end of turn. We have a lot of strong creatures that we want to deal damage to our opponent with. So let's deal that much more damage. And this plus Kraven, that makes Kraven into an 8/4 if you just drop one land, dropping Evolving Wilds, and use the Evolving Wilds. Now he's a 16/4. Still no trample though. Old Gnawbone, flying. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, create that many treasure tokens. We're giving all of our creatures trample. We're trying to find ways to just beat face with our creatures. So, this helps us get those treasure tokens, which allows us to get more mana values onto the battlefield. Pathbreaker, Ibex, attacks creatures you control get trample and +X/+X. X is greatest power among creatures you control. If we have all these ways to double our creature's power, that's a lot of power and toughness we're giving our creature, which probably is going to be Kraven, hopefully. Quartzwood Crasher, whenever one or more creatures you control with trample deal combat damage to a player, create an XX green dinosaur where X is the amount of damage those creatures dealt to that player. It's whenever one or more creatures, so like if you have multiple creatures trampling over that opponent, that is a really big dinosaur we're getting. And then later on, we double it, give it all fun stuff. Also has trample itself. Savala, Heart of the Wild, way to give some draw power and a lot of mana. Thunderfoot Bailout, a way to make sure we can give Kraven that trample, a little bit of a stat boost on top of that as well. Xenagos, God of Revels, as long as your devotion red and green is less than 7, isn't a creature. But at the beginning of combat on your turn, another target creature you control gets haste and +X/+X, where X is that creature's power. So if we can have this on the board with Kraven, that makes Kraven into a 5/4. Given the +X/+X, that's a 10/9 that we're swinging our opponent with. And he's still up to block for the next turn. And Zelpandrel, Hunger Dominus. Another way to make sure we double Kraven's power, so we deal just that much more damage to their creatures, and hopefully we have a way to give them trample. For our enchantments, we have Colossal Majesty. Less a little bit of draw power, because even with as I said, with just this and Kraven, we have enough to get this. Nope, we just needed something with mana value 4, and we get to draw power with just that and Kraven. Elemental Bond for a little bit of extra draw power. This helps us with Kraven. Character Uprising, we want to make sure we give Kraven trample, so let's do just that. Guardian Project for some more draw power. Root on the Wild, we like it when Kraven can attack the turn he comes down, so let's give him that haste. Sneak Attack, another way to cheat in our big creatures, so this helps us do that. Sylvan Library, make it so we get our big creature into our hand, and we pay a little bit of mana, but life's just a resource. Tribute to the World Tree, a little bit of extra draw power, or some additional +1/+1 counters. Unnatural Growth, another way to double up Kraven's power and toughness. This way you can deal that damage. And up the Beanstalk, whenever we're casting something mana value 5 or greater, we get to draw some cards. We like drawing cards. It's basically almost all of our enchantments. For our instants, we have Beast Within for some removal, Chaos War for some removal, Fling. I really like Fling. If we can make Kraven double his power and toughness, double his power and toughness, it doesn't matter that he doesn't have trample. We could just fling him right into our opponent's face. Heroic Intervention for some protection. Savage Beating, another way to give our creatures some additional buffs. Gives us an additional combat phase as well with this one. We're trying not to do extra combat phases too much, because we just did that with Rhino. But it gives our creatures double strike, allowing Kraven to attack for that much more. Soul's Fire. Target creature deals damage equal to its power to any target. That could be our opponent's face. That's a way to remove an opponent from the game. Tamio's Safekeeping for some protection. Team or Battle Rage. Give Kraven that trample. Allow him to swing on our opponent, just for funsies. Tyver's Stand for some protection. Unleash Fury for another way to double up Kraven's power so that he could be flung for just that much more damage or trample that much more damage. And Broadly Tutor for some additional search power. We have, no, I'm ready. Oh, Kozil's Fury, which is basically another copy of Fling in our lands. And Ogier Kozilom, another way to cheat out creatures from the top of our deck in order to get that much more power for Kraven. I don't know why I was forgetting his name. I really blanked out there for a second. I leave Domri and Archibola's, give some additional power to our creatures, also remove our opponent's stuff by having our creatures fight their creatures. Minskin Boo, another way to make sure we can fling our creatures at our opponent's face, and also give some +1/+1 counters onto our creatures if we need it. Blasphemous Act for a board wipe, potentially a one-sided board wipe a lot of times. Chandra's Ignition, target creature deals damage equal to its power to each other creature and each opponent. That's normally going to be game. That's going to be enough to finish off our opponents by the time we're casting this, hopefully. Far Seek for the lands. Jessica's Will to make sure we get that mana to cast all the stuff we want. Monster's Manual, another way to cheat out our big creatures. Nature's Lore for some mana. Overwhelming Stampede, give Graven that many more stats, and a trample. Rishkar's Expertise for some extra draw power. Season Gathering for that trample, and some draw power while we're at it. Tree Visits for some lands, and Traverse the Outlands for a lot of lands. But that's the deck there. I think I really like this deck. It is a dumb, just strong creature deck. But it's a dumb, strong creature deck. You know what you're here for. But that's the deck there. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of the day.